Alright, so this lesson, factoring and solving trinomials. First equation. We're going to factor x squared minus 6x minus 7. Before we start factoring this, let's really understand what it means to factor, what it actually gives us. So most of our equations are going to be y equals x squared minus 6x minus 7, or later on we'll denote these as f of x equals x squared minus 6x minus 7. Okay, it's a function. What kind of graph is this? Does anybody know what the name of this graph is? Something that starts with x squared. We should all know this. Quadratic, or another word? Go ahead.
Parabola.
Parabola. Okay, so we're going to so at least we know what this general shape should be. So when we're factoring this, okay, the reason why we're factoring this is to find our zeros. Now, what does that mean? Now we all have a graphing calculator, so let's go to our graphing calculator. Let's put that equation in. X squared minus 6x minus 7y equals. All right, and let's graph this. Okay, if we just have to, I'm going to go to zoom just to make sure I'm on a 10 by 10. I'm going to zoom standard, and this will give me my basic graph. All right, and what I want you guys to concentrate on here is look at your parabola, where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, where does your parabola cross the x-axis? All right, there's two places it crosses the x-axis. Give me one. -1 and
7.
-1 and 7. Okay, so if we zoom in here, we can see that we have a -1 and 7. So x equals 1, y equals 0. X equals -1, y equals 0. X equals 7, y equals 0. So let's go back to this for a second. So if we said when x equals 1, -1, we said y equals 0. Or our other 0 is when x equals 7, y equals 0. So these are just coordinates, okay? -1, 0, or 7, 0. So these are the zeros of the parabola. Let's take a look at this for a second. X equals -1. If we solve this for 0, okay, and I bring this -1 over to the right side, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. And I get x plus 1 equals 0. And if I do it to the other one, to the x equals 7, and I subtract 7 from both sides, I'm going to get x minus 7 equals 0. So since these are both zeros of the function, okay, these are both roots of the function, I'm going to say the quantity x plus 1 times the quantity x minus 7, since they're both equal to 0, can equal 0. When will these two products equal 0? When will these two products equal 0? There's two cases, or three cases. When will these two products equal 0? When will A times B equal 0, if you think about it that way? When will A times B equal 0? What's one case?
When A or B is 0.
Okay, so when A equals 0, or when B equals 0? Well, this is my A, this is my B. When will x plus 1 equal 0? When x is -1. When will x minus 7 equal 0? When x is 7. Okay, so these are the two roots. Okay, so you get the 0. So what I'm asking is, when will your y value be 0? Well, when x is -1. When will your y value be 0 again? When x is 7. So if we FOIL this, x plus 1 times the quantity x minus 7, x times x, x squared. Minus 7x plus 1x minus 7. Combine like terms, we get x squared minus 6x minus 7. And if you notice, this equation, or this, looks exactly like this. All right, so we're finding our factors. If we have our factors, we can work backwards and we'll get our equation. If we have our equation, we want to be able to find our factors. So one more time, our equation, we got a parabola here. And again, these are the roots, crossing at -7 or crossing where you cross the x-axis. Those are your roots. Okay, so that's exactly what we're factoring to find. We're factoring to find the roots of the parabola. Let's take an example. We have x squared plus 15x plus 56. These first examples we're going to do are nice and easy for us. Our leading coefficient is 1. Okay? So the product of 1, or the factors of 1, are just 1 times 1. The second question becomes, we need factors of positive 56 and factors of 1 to add up to positive 15. So what are factors of positive 56? I'll give you one. 1 and 56 are factors of 56. So let's test these for a sec, so you guys understand what I'm trying to do here. If I take the product, right, so this is eventually going to be split into two sets of parentheses. So my first factor here are going to be 1x and 1x. And that's going to go here. 1x, 1x. Except I don't have to write the 1. But I'm just trying to show you that 1 is the product of the leading coefficient. If I multiply 1 times 1, I get 1. If I multiply 1 times 56, I get 56. Is there any way I can get 1 and 56 to equal 15 if I add or subtract them? No. Since my sign here is negative, since my sign here to the 56 is positive, these factors of 56 both have to be positive, because how do I get positive 56? Positive 1 times positive 56, or what's another option? Negative 1 times negative 56. But either way, I'm still going to add these numbers. So if I add 1 and 56, I will get 57. Or if these were both negative, if this is negative 1 and negative 56, when I add these two together, I will get negative 57. But does that give me 15? No. So now we have to think about our multiplication facts. What are some other factors of 56 that could possibly add up to 15? Now, okay, I could go down the list and say I could divide this by 2, I could divide this by 3 or 4, and really try. But your multiplication facts will really help out. Okay, so we know 56 is 7 times 8. So we got positive 7 times positive 8, or in this case, negative 7 times negative 8, because both these numbers, positive 7 and positive 8, multiply to 56. Negative 7 times negative 8 also multiply to 56. But here's my factors, 1 and 1. What's 1 times 7? 7. What's 1 times 8? 8. So these are both positive. If I add these two numbers together, will I get a positive 15? Okay, so these are my factors. So I'm going to use 7 and 8. So this will be a positive 7 and a positive 8. So this quadratic function, x squared plus 15x plus 56, is the product of these two quantities, x plus 7, x plus 8. So am I correct? Can I check this? This is the nice easy part. Okay, so this is where you can FOIL. FOIL it through x squared plus 8x plus 7x plus 56. Combine like terms, x squared plus 15x plus 56. Does that check with this equation? Then you know you're correct. So this is a nice example because you could always go back and check your work when you FOIL. Your signs are very important in the middle here. Let's take a look at another example. This should be x. Okay, so here, very important. If this sign is positive, okay, when you break this up into two parentheses, this is telling you that you must have the same signs. Okay, if this sign here, if your last sign is positive, this is going to tell you that inside your parentheses you must have the same sign. So you have one option. You have two options. Either you're both going to have positive signs, or option number 2, you're going to have something minus something, or you're going to have two negative signs. But both the signs will be the same sign, and you get that again from your last term. Because you think about when you FOIL, in order to get a positive, your two numbers at the end that you FOIL, the two last terms that you FOIL, a positive times a positive is a positive, or a negative times a negative is a positive. So you have 1x squared plus 8x plus 12. Factors of 1x squared, factors of 1 are easy, 1 and 1. Or just in this case, x times x. I've seen many teachers do this different ways. I'm going to write factors of positive 12 that add up to positive 8. Okay, and you can do this any way you want, but this is what I usually do. Factors of positive 12 that add up to positive 8. If I break down factors of positive 12, again, you could always start with 1 and 12, or you could try something different. Any idea of any factors that you could possibly try?
2 and 6.
Okay, so I could say positive 2 and positive 6. If I multiply positive 2 times positive 6, do I get positive 12? Yes. If I add positive 2 and positive 6, I get what? Positive 8. Okay, be careful because your other factors could have been negative 2 and negative 6. If I multiply negative 2 and negative 6, do I get positive 12? So that also works with the product. But if I add these, I get negative 8. So in this case, I don't want this one. I want the two factors that add up to positive 8. So I'm going to put a positive 2 here, plus 2, plus 6. And these are the product of the quadratic function x squared plus 8x plus 12. Try another one. X squared plus 4x minus 12. Alright? So the last example, I said if this sign was positive, you would have the same signs. However, if this sign is negative, now you should have different signs. Okay? So this could be plus, and this one here could be minus, or it could be the other way around, minus or plus. It doesn't matter. But your two signs in the middle, your two factors, your two quantities will have different signs. All right, so my leading coefficient here is 1x, or 1, x squared. So this is just going to be x and x. Why is it x and x? Because when I FOIL, what's the first thing I multiply? X times x, and I get what? X squared. So there's my x squared. I got that part already. So now I want the factors of negative 12, okay, the factors of this last term that add up to positive 4. What could be factors of negative 12 that add up to positive 4?
6 and negative 2.
Okay, so you could say positive 6 and negative 2. Positive 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. Check that. And if I add positive 6 and negative 2, I get a positive 4. So that checks off as well. So these are my two factors, x plus 6, x minus 2. Okay, make sure you keep the plus with the 6, so the positive with the 6, and the subtraction with the 2. Again, if you want to FOIL this to check it, x times x, x squared, x times negative 2, negative 2x, plus 6x, minus 12. Combine like terms, x squared plus 4x minus 12, and you can see your answer checks off as the top one. So you can always go back, FOIL, and check your work. So x squared minus x minus 6. All right. Again, you're looking at your last sign, it's negative. Let these be little tips for you, little hints for you. If this is negative, the product of my two quantities must have the opposite signs. If the last sign is negative, the product of these two parentheses must have opposite signs. Okay? If this was positive, then both these signs would be the same, either both positive or both negative. In this case, one's positive, one's negative. Factors of negative 6, factors of my last term that add up to negative 1. What are factors of negative 6 that add up to negative 1? Factors of negative 6 that add up to negative 1. Negative 3 times positive 2. Negative 3 times positive 2 multiplies to negative 6. If I add negative 3 plus 2, I get negative 1. So I got my check here and I got my check here. Now just plug these in. So this is going to be x plus 2 and x minus 3. Again, if you want to FOIL, you can FOIL it out and see what's going on. So this equation is a little different. The last ones are expressions. This one's an equation. What makes this equation? Yeah, you have an equal sign. Okay, so now you're actually going to go one more step further and you're going to solve these. So again, same method. I want to break this up into two sets of parentheses. My last sign is positive, meaning I'm going to have both the same signs in my parentheses, or my quantities. I want factors of positive 8 that add up to negative 6. What are factors of positive 8 that add up to negative 6? Negative 4 times negative 2. If I multiply negative 4 and negative 2, I get positive 8. If I add negative 4 and negative 2, I get negative 6. So my factors here are x minus 4 and x minus 2. Except now I have equals 0. Okay. So when will this expression or when will this equation equal 0? Well, you have two cases when this equals 0. So again, if we go back to when does AB equal 0? Well, if A equals 0, then the whole equation will equal 0. Because 0 times B will be 0. Or, if B equals 0, then it doesn't matter what A is, because then the whole expression will also equal 0. So taking that into consideration, let's take each one of these products. So let's take the equation x minus 4, set equal to 0. And let's take the factor x minus 2, and set equal to 0. Solve these quickly. X, add 4 to both sides. X equals 4, and x equals 2. So when when x equals 4, your equation will equal 0. When x equals 2, your equation equals 0. Graphically, what does this mean? If you think about our graph here, these are our roots. So when x is 4 or 2. So here's when x is 2, here's when x is 4. So this is when the parabola will cross your x-axis. Okay, so that's exactly what you're solving for. You're solving for the roots or the zeros of the function. Let's try another one. Alright, so b squared minus 7b plus 12. Again, if it's x squared, b squared, whatever it is, it's still a variable, okay? Two factors. What do we know about my signs in this? What do we know about the signs? They're going to be the same because my last sign here is positive, okay? So they're both going to be the same. Do we know if they're both going to be positive or negative? Do we know which ones they're going to be?
Yes, negative.
Yes, look at this sign here. What's this sign going to be? If I add two numbers, how can I add, what two numbers do I have to add that are going to be negative? Two negative numbers. So this is going to be negative, and this is going to be negative. Alright, so there's a lot of cues and a lot of hints on this problem already. So here's my b, 1b, 1b. Factors of positive 12 that add up to negative 7. Again, you can do it on the side if you know it mentally right off the back. What are factors of positive 12 that add up to negative 7? Yep.
Negative 4, negative 3.
Negative 4, negative 3. Beautiful. Alright, so negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. Negative 4 plus negative 3 is negative 7. Solve these both. B minus 4 equals 0. B minus 3 equals 0. Solve these. B equals 4. B equals 3. Again, these are my roots. If you go back to your equation, 1, 2, 3, one root, 4, another root. And this is where your parabola crosses your x-axis. Let's do one more example. This is an example of a binomial. All right. Same concept, except you're going to take less steps. Here you're just going to factor out. Factor out what you can here. You have x squared plus 2x. What can you factor out of x squared plus 2x? So I'm going to factor out x here. So again, when I factor out an x, it's like I'm dividing both of these by x. Whatever is left stays in my parentheses. So this becomes x plus 2 equals 0. My two factors are x and the quantity x plus 2. Take each one separately. Set equal to 0. So let x equal 0. Let x plus 2 equal 0. X equals 0 is already solved. There's one solution. X plus 2, solve this for x. You get x equals negative 2. So again, your parabola is crossing at 0 and negative 2. So this is where your parabola crosses your axis.